Joining me now is Bruce Fein. He is a former Associate Attorney General as well as a constitutional lawyer. Bruce, thanks so much for coming in. Some of the senators have said this sets a bad precedent, not being able to call witnesses during this trial. What's your take on that?
Well, there have only been 3 presidential impeachments in the history of 230 years, and none of them have really followed exactly what their predecessor did. So to say that's a precedent and means that there'll no longer be witnesses, I don't think is accurate. I do think that what distinguishes this case is that the evidence from Mr. Bolton's book that suggested there was additional information corroborating the theme that Mr. Trump offered Mr. Zelensky a White House visit and the release of millions, tens of millions in military aid in exchange for open investigation against his political opponent, that really wasn't available at the time that the House sent the articles of impeachment over to the Senate to say, well, they didn't do their job. This is newly discovered evidence. But I wouldn't overstate, the importance of the precedent. Impeachment is unique in every particular Congress. This is not a situation as we have courts where they're bound by precedent, by tradition and otherwise. So I think another impeachment would probably have its own rules.
Let's talk about John Bolton. What do you think the impact about his allegations about Trump's pressure campaign against Ukraine will have on him beyond this trial?
Well, I think it gives credibility to the Democrats because John Bolton isn't code pink. He's not someone who has ever been aligned with Democrats. So the argument that this is just a political attack on him because they want to get rid of a Republican president rings hollow when you're attacking John Bolton. In fact, if anything, Mr. Bolton's even more conservative, so to speak, on the customary spectrum of ideology than Mr. Trump himself. So I think it will hurt Mr. Trump politically. But I don't think it adds any legal muscle to the claims that were advanced in the impeachment articles.
Beyond Trump, what about Senate Republicans? How do you think this might impact them?
Well, I think you've got to look at the individual states. Some are obviously more pro-Trump than otherwise. But I do think that the public probably was disappointed that there weren't live witnesses. If you were like you and me and followed everything closely, that's not really they could add anything more, but if you're beyond the Beltway, I think it would give them more information. I do not think that the acquittal will benefit these particular senators running in November 2020. And in a couple of cases where the vote is close, Cory Gardner in Colorado, Gary Peters in Michigan, they could lose. But I don't want to overstate it. I was involved in the impeachment of Mr. Nixon in 1974, and there it was a landslide. After he resigned, he would have been impeached. You had a wholesale turnover of the House and the Senate in favor of Democrats. I don't think you're going to see that widespread impact in this case.
Well, I think this is our last question. As you know, Trump is scheduled to give his State of the Union address on Tuesday. That is the day before he's likely to be acquitted. What if it was turned around? The acquittal came before the scheduled address. How do you think that might have impacted his speech or will impact his speech?
Well, I don't know whether the acquittal coming afterwards is going to impact the speech any differently than it was before, because we know it's a fait accompli. You need 2/3, and there's no way, even from the outset, that you were going to have 67 senators vote to acquit. I believe that Mr. Trump, vintage Trump, will already announce his acquittal in advance and attack the Democrats. He uses, every time he has a podium, he attacks his political opponents head on. So I don't think he's going to suggest that there's any doubt that he'll treat himself as already have been acquitted. It was just a witch hunt, and vote for him for 2020. It'll be a campaign speech.
Okay, Bruce Fein, thanks so much for your perspective and for coming in today.
Thank you.
Thank you.